Gender-affirming mastectomies have an overwhelmingly low regret rate. This is a new study that just came out in August, in the August issue of the, what's it called? Journal of Surgery, something like that. I don't know. It's a very prestigious journal. I have, so if you go to research.vicerhino.com, you get my list of trans-related research, and there is a whole section on regret after gender-affirming care. And all of the studies have been done in kind of a post hoc nature, and like the methodology hasn't been the greatest. It's been pretty solid, but like there are better ways to do this sort of thing. It's just that like it's been studied for so short a period of time that like we haven't collected the data. However, the preliminary data that we do have, which, you know, the methodology isn't the most ideal one. It's good methodology, but like we have like what they have collected has involved sample sizes of like thousands of people. So like these aren't small sample sizes. This one, however,
it's a properly quantitative study.
Yeah, so this is a new study that's used more rigorous methodology. The sample size was fairly low because they were working with patients at one specific practice. So they said in the study they want to see more research done with the same methodology, like under multi-practice, like seeing patients from like multiple different practices rather than just one practice. But like using the much more rigorous methodology, they've basically confirmed that gender-affirming care has essentially no regret.
A statistically insignificant amount of regret would probably be the best way to put it then, wouldn't it?
It would, but I feel like that kind of minimizes the people that do have regrets and turns them into like, oh, you're statistically insignificant. Because like I do want to like point out that like, yeah, no, if you got gender affirming care and you do regret it, your feelings are valid. That's fine. Like, don't use that to attack other people who choose to get gender affirming care, but like
don't do a Lori Alexander.
Yeah.
I think abortion should be bad because I would have had a fifth kid, maybe.
Yeah. But anyway, so gender affirming care continues to be proven to provide a high level of satisfaction, incredibly low levels of regret. This study looked at people who had gender-affirming mastectomies from 1990 to 2020, so this is very long-term. I think the average number of years since their procedure was like 3 point something, so it was like most of them were fairly recent, but like some of them went back to 1990. So it's a fairly small sample size. There's 139 respondents, which like that's not insignificant, but it is relatively small. So there are 235 people who were eligible and 139 actually responded to the study. And I love the gender affirming language that they use in this article. They say most of the people surveyed who underwent the procedures are men. So like these are trans men. They didn't feel the need to specify. They're just like they were men that had their breasts removed.
Which also, it helps as well, specifically when you do that, though, because it means that nobody can sit there and go, okay, well, what about trans women who get breast implants? Like, well, that's not what the study's covering. Like, the language makes it very, very clear. This is what this is covering. Nothing is outside of the, other things are outside the scope of it. We're just focusing on trans men who did this. So people who freak out about, because have you seen any of the, regret comics that get put up by various right-wing posters?
Stone Toss
would be one of them. He's the immediate one that comes to mind. There's also that guy that draws in that SpongeBob hyper-realism style. I don't remember what the guy's name is, but he draws exclusively in that style, and they'll draw stuff that tries to poke fun at scars and stuff like that. But this shows that it doesn't matter. The regret rate's just not there.
Yeah. So yeah, most of the people are men. They also had 17 non-binary individuals and 34 gender non-conforming individuals. And said while there were some dominant identities in the sample, there were a lot of variations in terms of experience with and after the surgery. So this included people who had complications with the surgery, people who needed follow-up surgery to fix things that went wrong. So this isn't just they didn't just cherry pick people for whom everything went swimmingly.
Yeah, because there was a doctor who was found to have not gone through. I don't remember who it was, but there was a person on Twitter who had posted multiple times about like the ways that their top surgery had gone wrong, and infection had gone in and had started spreading, and their doctor kept on going like, "Hey, it's okay. There's nothing really wrong." They had to go to another doctor that said, "No, something's been wrong. Your doctor neglected to do certain things." I don't remember the names of the people involved. I wish I did here. If somebody remembers that post in my chat, if you can throw it at me. But so this is taking into account situations like that where the person, things went wrong, and yet they still are like, no, yeah, this is still what I wanted.
Yeah. So in this one, they actually use two different surveys, which like, now when I say survey here, I'm not talking about like just some people threw together a questionnaire being like, hey, do you regret it? And then they said no. These are like actual like diagnostic survey type things to assess the level of regret and the level of satisfaction. So like these methodological surveys that have been validated to actually provide accurate information. So this is what I mean, where it's more like this is a more rigorous study, because like before, like in other studies, it's just been like, okay, well, your practice has performed this many gender affirming cares. How many of those patients have contacted you to say we'd like to have the surgery reversed? And like it doesn't actually talk to the person who had the surgery themselves. It's just like, did anyone contact you to ask for surgery reversals? And like that could miss people that go to a different practice for surgery reversal. It could miss people that feel regret but don't actually request a reversal. And like these are the kind of problems that have happened with these regret surveys up until now. So these guys actually went to the people themselves and sent them like scientifically verified surveys that are like they've been verified to be accurate at assessing levels of regret and satisfaction. And so on a 5-point scale, the average satisfaction was 4.8 and the median value was 5 out of 5.
Which is just a 5 out of 5 at that point.
Yeah. Like when your median is a perfect score, that's pretty damn good. The regret scale was a 100-point scale, and the average score, the mean score, was 4.2, and the median was 0. So when you look at median scores, everybody's satisfied, nobody has regrets. When you look at average scores, the vast majority are satisfied, and the vast majority have 0 regrets.
So this is one of those things that I like us having access to it, because one of the main ways that we see Republican-esque people, not necessarily people who would say, no, I'm a staunch voting Republican, I agree with everything they say, but the people who just have some concerns, they do what we'd like to call concern trolling on the internet.
I already got one of those. I posted this thing on Twitter and someone immediately followed up with like, okay, but like, how do you evaluate whether people are having... you know, whether it's a sunk cost fallacy, whether they just are saying they don't have regrets.
Okay, so if they want us to, they're basically asking us to mind probe every person and read their thoughts and feelings.
No, but that's the thing though, is that the like I don't know the questions on this survey, but what I do know is that this is a methodologically verified survey that is generally accepted for the purposes of determining surgical regret and shit like that. So it's like, I assume that the researchers are aware of the sunk cost phenomenon. So like, you know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that Twitter person is the first person ever to think that maybe someone is engaging in the sunk cost fallacy. But like, I'm pretty sure the researchers are aware of it.
Yeah. No, the reason that I'm happy that we have something like this though is because this is the exact thing that you can, this is a very, very nuanced and philosophical position, I know, but this is one of those things that you can shove into somebody who's concerned trolling's face and go neener.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's just me being a very mature and pragmatically minded individual.
Also, of the people who experienced regret, there were still no individuals who underwent reversal procedures. Naramdaputz is saying, at that point, I wonder what the average non-zero and non-5 scores were. I'm curious about that myself. Now, I tried looking this up on Sci-Hub. It's new enough that it's not available there yet. I'm sure it'll be there fairly soon. So I will check back to you when I've actually read the study itself. It was like, I haven't read the study yet. I'm just reading the reporting on it, and I heard Skeptic's Guide cover it a couple weeks ago. Actually, no, okay, that's a lie. Their podcast from a couple weeks ago covered it. I just heard it 5 minutes before the stream. Because, like, I was desperately searching for something that wasn't depressing. I'm like, yeah, trans people, go trans people. They don't regret. But these results are consistent with previous ad hoc studies and affirm overwhelmingly low levels of regret following gender-affirming surgery. It also challenges the notion claimed without, like, people that suggest that people regret trans surgery. They claim that without scientific evidence. They'll say that, like, oh, well, people regret gender-affirming procedures that, you know, it might take years to manifest. So, like, you can't just survey them right after they get the procedure. And we're like, okay, well, some of these
everybody
people...
from multiple walks of life were surveyed over the course of 30 years.
Yeah, well, that in this one, yes. Well, I mean, in others, too. This isn't the first one to cover that kind of time span, but, like, to have it covered again is great. And they actually compared their work with 44 other studies focusing on surgery regrets unrelated to gender-affirming care. So things like... This article doesn't cover it, but one of the things that was mentioned on Skeptic's Guide was mastectomies due to breast cancer have a higher regret rate than mastectomies due to gender-affirming care.
Well, that's because a lot of people who had to, like, if they had to get mastectomies due to breast cancer, they probably wanted to keep their chest, but they had to get rid of it for survival. Whereas
absolutely,
most people who I know who are trans and want their breasts removed are just like, yeah, no, fuck it, yeet it and give it to somebody who cares.
Yeah,
give it to somebody who wants it.
When I heard of, like, when I read the bit at the beginning about non-binary and gender non-conforming individuals, my first thought was V. LaBianca, who they're on Twitter, and they have been very public about their seeking of gender-affirming care. They got a hysterectomy. They had, I believe they had a mastectomy, and they had people constantly telling them, like, oh no, you'll regret it, you shouldn't do this. It's like, no, they are living their best life over there.
No, that's typically how it goes, though. Like, this is why I pointed out that these people want us to have some technology that allows us to read people's minds, basically. They want to be able to go, okay, I know you're saying that, but if I guarantee you, if I read your brain, you regret it. I know deep down you have to. It can't possibly be that you're happy with this surgery that removed a thing, and you, meanwhile, I'm sitting here, a survivor of appendicitis. Like, yeah, sometimes it's fine to get things cut out of you that just do nothing good for you.
Well, here's the thing. With the 44 other studies focusing on surgical interventions that had nothing to do with gender-affirming care, there was only one single study with one particular surgery that had a lower regret rate, and it was for treating urinary incontinence. That's the only surgery that exists that has a lower regret rate than gender-affirming care, or gender-affirming mastectomies specifically.
God, imagine that. The only people who are happier about their surgeries are people who really, really needed to pee.
Yeah, like for instance, 18% of those who underwent knee replacement surgery experienced regret. But you don't find legislators saying, hey, we need to stop knee replacement surgeries because of how many people regret getting them.
So I actually had this argument with a friend of mine a few months back. And when we had this argument, I brought up the knee replacement surgery thing, and the only defense they had was, yeah, but that's different.
So Heidi, my partner, says, I want that one. And the fun thing here is now, because of the stream delay, I have to guess whether she is talking about knee replacement or urinary incontinence or the hysterectomy. And I know it could be any of those three. I'm sorry if I just gave too much information, Heidi. She is very open about this sort of thing, so I'm not really worried about her being like, no, you shouldn't have said that. But at the same time, I might have not been supposed to say that.
I think.
Oh.
I think not.
She says all.
All.
All of the above.
I think it's funnier not knowing which one it is, and then just with the concept. No, I want all of that.
Well, I mean,
every single ounce.
Okay. People who have been pregnant in the chat probably know, like, after you've been pregnant, you just, like, you know that sometimes when I sneeze, I will pee myself. At least a little bit. Like, that's just a thing that happens to people after they've been pregnant.
So, because of the way you worded that, Rhino, I hope you know there's going to be some weird fan art.
Oh, God. Because
you just said people who know when they're pregnant, sometimes when I sneeze, I pee myself. I didn't realize that Vice Rhino Impreg was going to come up during the stream, but apparently it did. So, you know, what? There we are.
Okay, well, whatever. Have at it. I have a fan art section. I got chastised by my own moderators in the Discord because I posted a link to some fan art, and it was NSFW, and they were like, Rhino, I know there are some minors in your channel. You can't just post that. I'm like, sorry. Okay, I'll delete it.
Gainer in my chat just going, banned all of you, banned to the last.
Anyway, so one of the things about this study is that, like, one of the goals that the study authors had was they wanted to do a deeper study on the reason people regret, because in the past, what's come up is that the reason people regret, like, the reason trans people regret surgery overwhelmingly is because of social factors. They start the transition thing, and then their family are like, oh, I wish you were just the girl I was born with, or the boy I was born with, or whatever. Like, I wish you were just the gender that you were at birth. And they are so pressured into it that it becomes easier for them to then conform to the gender they were assigned at birth rather than being true to themselves. And that is the single largest factor in regret in these instances. So they wanted to study that and see how valid that was, because, again, these previous studies don't have the best methodology. So they wanted to see what was going on there. But what they found was that so few people had any regrets about it that there weren't enough people with regrets to do any valid statistical analysis. Like, they just didn't have enough data.
And it's interesting that that's the case, though, because if you hear it from right-wing Republicans, we need to be listening to the voices of the detransitioners, the horror stories of what they went through. We need there to be tales so that people know not to do this horrible thing to their body. I made a point in a previous video that this is all you need to do, because human beings are not generally data minded. We rely on type 1 thinking more often than most of us know. But all the right wing needs to do to make it seem like there's a shit ton of people detransitioning is to have 10. If they have 10 people, and they do, who are detransitioned, who, you know, they've got Chloe, they've got that one dude who wrote a book on it and campaigns about it all the time. They've got at least 10 people, easy. All they need to do is cycle those people through the news. That's enough. That's enough to have a new person on the news every week for 2 months on various channels and cycle through until people have basically forgotten the faces, to make it seem like there is a stream, constant stream of detransitioners who are just trying to get their words heard.
Sorry, I'm nodding along with you, but I just noticed that when I nod, it looks like I'm just trying to jiggle my boobs. So nod, jiggle boobs, jiggle boobs. Okay,
so are we saying that Rhino has a 100% happiness rate with his new boobs he's gotten?
Okay, so I feel a little bit bad about this, but the very first thing I did with this avatar is like I opened up the program that you're supposed to use, like the one that I'm using to put it in OBS or whatever, and I accidentally found the controls for moving the light source, and
Yeah.
yeah, like I mean, so in like I don't know, it's just like it seemed like that should be the control for moving the avatar around, but it was just moving the light source around. And so the first thing I discovered is that when you move the light source around, it looks like I could show you the shorts that are on, like this avatar is a full body thing. It's got shorts and legs and everything.
Yeah.
But when you move the light source, the shadows make it look like it's just getting wet in starting in the crotch and just working its way up. So it's like the avatar peed itself. So like the first thing I did with this avatar was like, oh no, I peed myself. And so yeah, I'm sorry about that, but like the second thing I did with it was like jiggle physics, look at my boobs.
Jesus Christ. The corruption is spreading. The corruption is spreading.
Anyway, medical professionals should work to identify vulnerabilities associated with social determinants of health rather than deny medical care over exaggerated claims regarding the possibility of procedural regret. Absolutely, 100%.
Wait, exaggerated claims about procedural regret. Wait, are they even? So wait, we don't even have data that there are people who are exaggerating their claims about regret on detransition. We don't have that data yet.
There's not enough of them.
Huh. Wow. Wouldn't you know?